Shaza, Season of the Witnesses, Part 1C. When we left off, Shaza was being rescued off the island after a tsunami, as well as her uncle. And her whole home was gone. She passed out in shock. She awakened to voices, and it sounded like a duo of women in unison speaking. In her mind at first. Then her eyes were focusing. The voice or voices became more sharp and unified in her hearing. She was able to discern the words, "Leave her to rest now, Bland. She has suffered a great shock. I will check back in on her. The brain and body need rest when shocks such as these happen. She will be all right when she is rested in the time." She opened her eyes to two beings standing over her, with the looks of concern in their faces. "There, see what you have done," she said. Farnell, the female of the two. And even though the female's mouth didn't move, her voice was heard in Shaza's head. The bigger of the two, a male, was the being that had plucked her off the island before she closed her eyes in painful memory of the last of her kin, and her favorite uncle, Rada, was taken from her. Again, her tears streamed down her cheeks as she relived the horror of it all. Bland reached into his pocket of his robe and gave Shaza the shell she had in her hand as she was rescued from the tsunami. Moments before it had hit, she was quite attractive, and he was well aware of the chemistry already growing between them. The feeling was not unknown to him. Once he had felt almost the same way in his homeland. During a short visit to regain equipment for repairs during a mission. He would have to examine these feelings more closely later. But right now, as commander of the fleet for rescue, it was his job to ensure their safety and well-being. The female of the two came closer to hug her, murmuring quiet and comforting thoughts of love and understanding around Shaza, saying somethings in a strange yet familiar dialect that comforted her. Bland handed the female micro-communicator, saying to her for any questions. Farnell looked at him for a minute. This son of hers, who had shown the most important information of the prophecy. She was honored to be the mother of such a great child from her womb, and now a grown adult. His commanding presence, known from day one of his birth, for Farnell was a visionary of their race, a holy heavenly priestess, and one of the chosen. Shaza heard in her head, "All is well, child. He's resting." She stared at the tall and somewhat glowing being that had rescued her. He was gorgeous, and Shaza found herself shaking from head at the thought. She had lost her family in shock and grief, and the thoughts of attraction interceded her sad thoughts. Was it her or was it the being who was staring intently at her? She felt he was looking at her soul. Her heart skipped a beat at how his eyes spoke volumes into her very being. He had twisted, dark, shoulder-length hair. Let me get this. He had spoke to her mind on the island, urgently saying, "Come, hurry, we haven't much time left." She took his hand in trust then and has trusted him ever since. She hasn't felt this way about her betrothed Casman at all since their open engagement or announcement. This was all so strange to her. I'm going to read that back over. She hadn't felt that way about her betrothed Casman at all since their open engagement announcement. and this was all so strange to her. Shaza roused from these past thoughts to hear her mother-in-law speaking the dialect of her people. Fornell's eyes stared blankly at no place at all as she spoke. A screen that was activated to her voice was recording the vision as it proceeded in her mind. Sometimes the visions would be so vivid, they would project visually on screen where the origins took place. Fornell was in a deep trance, and they were becoming longer as the rift was now beginning to shift. No sense in trying to communicate with her now, said Shaza, in her state. It could prove to be disruptive to the vision, and it might pertain to her son's mission. For it all pertained on the mission being served out before their departure, and it all depended on Bland carrying it out.